Hello everyone and welcome to part 1 of What If Tailgate Survived. So without further ado, let's kick off the story. So we start this part off on Cybertron during its final days, where two Autobots, RC and Tailgate, are captured by a Decepticon known as Arachnid, who demands she gives her the information of the attack coordinates or she will kill her precious partner Tailgate. To which RC comes up with a new plan. She does give Arachnid a certain set of coordinates, but not the attack coordinates. And that's when Arachnid gets with the Vehicons to confirm the location, meaning enough time was bought to save Tailgate's life. Because that's when Bumblebee and Cliffjumper arrive to save the two, killing the Vehicon guards and providing Arachnid enough time to escape. And RC and Tailgate are transported to a medbay and are treated for their injuries, especially Tailgate. And RC is just glad that he's still alive. And soon enough, Tailgate is back in the field. And his first and final mission on Cybertron is to help evacuate Autobots soldiers within the Iacon Hall of Records because it is being stormed. And once he gets there, he begins shooting through waves of Vehicons with weapons similar to Cliffjumpers. And then we see as Tailgate manages to enter through a back entrance, and then he sees an Autobot guard ready to face the Decepticons, with Alpha Trion in the room, whom sees Tailgate and demands Smokescreen go with Tailgate. Tailgate escorts Smokescreen out of the building, and then Alpha Trion dies, like he did in canon. And Vehicons sweep the Hall of Records and find nothing except for one thing, some sort of key, and they take it with them anyway. And Smokescreen's like, what happened to Alpha Trion? And Tailgate tells him, I don't know, kid, but listen to me. He then gives Smokescreen specific coordinates to the location of Optimus Prime, and to go there. They're about to leave Cybertron. He'll keep you safe. And Tailgate says to not worry about him. He has to make sure every Autobot gets away from Cybertron. And Smokescreen is like, thank you. The name's Smokescreen, by the way. And Tailgate says, nice to meet you, Smokescreen. You could call me Tailgate. And don't worry, I think we'll see each other again someday. And then the two split off. Then eventually Cybertron dies because of eons of war. And on the Decepticon warship, RC is captured and taken before Starscream and Soundwave. And someone else who is an add-on to this story, Cyclonus, who immediately pushes Starscream aside to interrogate RC himself. We have discovered this encrypted Autobot signal, decoded for us, and I shall see that you are dealt with honorably. To which RC refuses. And then Cyclonus is like, please, tell us, so this war and struggle may end. But that's when Starscream says, enough soft play, Cyclonus, we gotta get information from where it hurts. Then he brings in two prisoners that were recently captured, and RC is just surprised to see Tailgate most of all. And Cliffjumper just says, RC, been a while. And Tailgate says, RC, we're here to get you out. How exactly, we don't know yet. And then Starscream is like, now, how about that information we need, RC? And I will see to it that they are terminated quickly. And RC just looks to Starscream like, you seriously think I'm gonna give you information? And then Starscream knocks out RC, with Tailgate and Cliffjumper both following along with RC, which causes them two to be knocked out as well. And then Cyclonus, Starscream, and Soundwave discuss the Autobots' fate, to which Starscream is just willing to terminate them. And then Cyclonus jumps in. Didn't we all agree that the code they carry is too valuable? So instead of just terminating them, deep interrogation is necessary. Oh really, Cyclonus? And how do you recommend we do that? To which Soundwave just walks up to him and points somewhere. No, I will not take the prisoners to the surface. Why should I let him have all the glory? Because you know, they will not just give up the information willingly. We require an expert at interrogation. And then Starscream is just like, fine, I must deliver Energon to him anyway. And Cyclonus stays in charge of the warship. The three are trying to plan things out on how to break out. That is until guards come in and cuff them, and they are quickly being transported to Kaon. So this is Kaon, huh? What level you Decepticons have done with the place? And the Tailgate says, how about you shut it, Cliff, before Screamy over there is just tempted to turn around and stab you in the chest. And then RC urges the both of them to stop before they're both killed. And then they walk into a laboratory filled with different tools of torture. Cliffjumper then says, we may be in a little more trouble than I thought. And Tailgate says, gee, you think? And then Shockwave enters the room, where he decides to use the cortical psychic patch to gain the information, not from RC here, not Tailgate, but Cliffjumper is chosen here. since as a conversationalist, always running his mouth, he will be the one to suffer. And then the Decepticons get the coordinates for where Optimus's SOS is coming from, and Starscream sends it to the warship. And RC and Tailgate from both their containments look at each other and nod, cause here RC is more willing to join Optimus, because Tailgate is still alive. To which Shockwave is about to terminate Cliffjumper, but Starscream wishes to deal with the termination of the prisoner. To which Shockwave then goes to prepare the space bridge. To which RC gets free from her restraints and puts Starscream back in her own restraints. And then she frees Tailgate and Cliff. To which I can imagine both Cliffjumper and Tailgate being the ones to kinda nudge at Starscream to tell him to spill the beans on what Shockwave is up to. And then RC threatens Starscream. And then Starscream spills the beans on the space bridge. And then the three decide to go on and try to stop Shockwave. And along the way, the three of them are just talking about how kinda excited they are to reunite with Optimus. And then when they get there, they see the coordinates to Optimus Prime on Earth. And the three decide that they must stop the Decepticons here. There's three of them after all. Because even if it won't directly stop the Decepticons, it'll still buy the three enough time to maybe head through the space bridge and warn Optimus so that they could be prepared. And Tailgate says, well, let's get it done. And then he puts on a battle mask. And then those two guards are basically terminated. RC then begins to hack the space bridge to overload it, with Shockwave arriving. No, my work! And then Cliffjumper and Tailgate team on Shockwave, where Cliffjumper takes a lucky shot at Shockwave's eye, blinding him. But to ensure this job is done right, Tailgate decides to finish him off once and for all. So he takes out 2 chainsaws and cuts Shockwave's shoulder cannon, and one goes into his spark, killing him. And with the space bridge about to blow, the three decide to make their move and run in to unite with their fellow Autobots. And then the space bridge explodes, which spreads throughout Shockwave's facility and even reaches Starscream, but the blast is not as powerful with him, but he is still hit. And he is actually freed from the explosion from his restraints. And the explosion is seen from the Nemesis warship, where Cyclonus commands, set course for the planet where Optimus and his rebels are hiding, and this war shall be ended. And then the warship sets a course for planet Earth, through which Starscream walks out of the facility wounded, and he looks up to see the warship leaving, and he's like, grr, fine, deserters, I don't need you. I am Starscream, servant to no one. And then he does head back into the facility, pretty upset that he was abandoned, and stays wounded on Cybertron, until he comes across something very interesting inside of a room within Shockwave's laboratory facility, where he sees a creature in a tube. A Predacon, one apparently that Shockwave has been trying to revive from the extinction, and it is currently incomplete. Ah yes, thank you my dear Shockwave. Your sacrifice will not be in vain, for you have left me with a tool I need to get revenge on all of my enemies, and perhaps seal my fate as the leader of the Decepticons and this universe. However, time will tell. I first need to complete this beast. And who knows, maybe more. And then Starscream gets to work. Meanwhile, Tailgate, RC, and Cliffjumper all get up. And then Cliffjumper's like, look at us three, killing cons like Shockwave together. Maybe we should become some sort of team. And then Tailgate and RC look at each other and nod. And RC says, we already are. And then Tailgate says, yeah, now I think the three of us should find Optimus. And then the three start walking towards a sunset, for a second admiring this planet and how beautiful it is. Until behind them a ground bridge opens up, and 5 Autobots walk through, Optimus Prime's team, where they happily greet the 3 Autobots. Cliffjumper and RC go greet Bumblebee, since the 3 fought together. Bulkhead and Ratchet nods happily and smile. And then Smokescreen, remembering Tailgate, goes and says, Tailgate, it's nice to see you again. And Tailgate says, nice to see you too, Smokescreen. And then Smokescreen says, now that you're here, I never got a chance to say thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be here with Optimus Prime. And then Tailgate looks as Optimus approaches him. Tailgate, I presume? And Tailgate nods. I've heard what you did to help many Autobots, such as Smokescreen, to escape Cybertron in its final days. And for that I thank you. Now we have a chance to face the Decepticons and end this war. No problem, OP. Also, there's one more thing I gotta say. And then the Autobots form up to come up with a plan to protect this planet from any Decepticon who may be incoming. And that's where I'm going to leave it off here, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoyed part 1, and I'll see you guys in part 2.